What's up, NBA fans? Dom Sukan Mike, and has this been a crazy 48 hours or what? Since the NBA opened on October 25th, we've seen some of the best opening performances that I've really seen in my time watching the NBA. Usually opening night is always pretty exciting in the NBA, but we do not see development and stat lines and improvement like we've seen it this year, and I'm here to give my take on it and tell you what I think it might all mean. Now, before I do all that, I just do want to give the disclaimer that I might be totally wrong, this season might suck, and it might all go downhill from here. And the reason I'm saying that is because I don't want to be one of the NBA fans that's reacting to everything on a shot-to-shot basis. For instance, Golden State lost their first game against San Antonio the other night, and it seems since then, if you were to hang around social media, you would think Golden State is a lottery team, you would think Kawhi Leonard is already the MVP, LeBron James already has his 4th ring. Like, it's crazy how much opinions change on a shot-to-shot basis. I'm just like, yo, calm down, let the season happen. I'm just giving my opinion on what might happen. So if you come back here in 5 months and everything I said was totally wrong, just remember I said this could go either way. Now, back to my point, opening night was pretty historic to say the least, and a lot of performances happened that caught my eye, and I saw a lot of things that I liked, starting with Kawhi Leonard. Now, coming into the season, a lot of people were saying Kawhi Leonard might win MVP, and you have a group that's like, nah, you're crazy, he doesn't have a chance at it. But man, if he plays like he did in Golden State, he definitely has a chance at it. But this isn't just to, react off of one night. I want to talk about the development I saw in this guy. First of all, if he actually did train with Kobe Bryant this summer, it clearly showed in his game because this was the most alpha I've ever seen Kawhi Leonard play in my entire life. On offense, he was being way more aggressive than I ever saw, but the biggest change I saw in Leonard that night is him handling the basketball like an actual guard. He was setting up plays for his teammates, and he was really dribbling like a guard, really. I mean, I remember this one play off the top of my head where, like, he just squared up at the top of the key when the clock was winding down. He goes under his legs, and he just did a beautiful pull-up on Andre Iguodala, and that's something that if he adds to his game on top of the defense he already has, he is going to be a scary player. You think about a two-way player of that level, whew, that's just beautiful. And Kawhi that night, I believe, ended up with 35 points and a total rout of the Warriors. That was a very encouraging performance that I saw from Kawhi, though. I saw so much growth. And the thing I love about him is it's very consistent, because I remember last opening night, last year when they played the Thunder, I said the same exact thing. He came into that season looking better than he did last season. He's come into this season looking even better. So I love what I've seen from Kawhi. And you can't forget the performance of Damian Lillard either that night, who had 39 points. And he always comes into the league in the season really with a chip on his shoulder, because he's always getting snubbed from the All-Star team. He's always getting left off people's list when you talk about the top point guards. And, he's really the life of that Blazer team, and he's going to determine how far they go. So, and if he's playing anything like he did opening night, Blazers fans definitely have something really, really bright to look forward to. Another game I sat in on this week was the Indiana Pacers versus Dallas Mavericks, and I absolutely love not only what I saw from the Pacers, but from Myles Turner in particular. Here we're talking about a center, so he's already tall as is, but he can shoot the three-pointer, he can shoot mid-range, he can play post, he can defend really well, and he can protect the rim. That is really the combination for an all-star player. Like, I would be surprised if he's not an all-star at some point in his career. Really love the development I saw from him, and this is only his second year. Check out the stat line. He had 30 points, 16 rebounds, and 4 blocks. That's a superstar stat line. Now, obviously, he's not a superstar yet. This is one performance, but that is really encouraging to the NBA's future and to Pacers fans alike. And then you just head over to New Orleans, where Anthony Davis pretty much decided he was going to be Wilt Chamberlain reincarnated for the night. He had one of the greatest modern stat lines I think I've seen, and really I don't remember seeing a better one anytime recently. 50 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 steals, and 4 blocks. He did something major in all 5 categories, especially for a big man with 5 assists. That's pretty major for a big guy. And it was pretty amazing to watch because they still ended up losing the game. And I watched the highlights of that game and I was like, wow, this guy did everything he could. It's pretty tough to lose a game like that. But anyways, it's just a game against the Nuggets. I'm more happy for his development because a big issue with him was staying on the court last year. And if you remember, coming into last year, the big hype was, oh, Anthony Davis is going to win MVP and he's about to take over the league, and he couldn't stay on the court. So it's really good to see him back. Really good to see injuries haven't taken much away from him, and hopefully he can stay on the court and keep providing us with classics. Just my last little footnotes here so I can go ahead and get to the point of this video. James Harden and the Greek Freak look like they're working out with their experiments at point guard. I actually did get to watch James Harden play his first game at point guard, and although it fell apart and he ended up with 7 turnovers, for the most part, it was looking beautiful because his court vision is A1. The passes were really crisp. They were really accurate. He has really good reads of the defense. I love what I saw from James Harden until, came to the end and started turning the ball over. Whatever, it's his first game. I'm not mad at his performance in that first game. And then the Greek Freak obviously ate at point guard as well with 31 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. And I caught the highlights of that game, and I don't know how anyone's going to deal with that guy, yet alone a point guard. He's bigger than everybody on the floor, longer than everybody on the floor. I think as we move on, that experiment's going to work out pretty well. And if you checked out my video about what it takes to be a superstar, you pretty much noticed that I had snubbed DeMar DeRozan. I didn't take the time to mention him, and then this guy just comes out on opening night and decides to have a 40-point performance. So hopefully he's ready to actually be the legitimate superstar of the Toronto Raptors. I'm not giving that title to him after one game, but I love the progress, and I'm going to keep an eye on him to see where this goes. So why am I so excited to see everything I saw from these players in the last 48 hours? Well, there's two reasons actually. First off, I feel like the NBA is finally starting to replenish itself. As we all know, if you're a 90s baby, your childhood is basically moving out in terms of NBA players. So Kobe Bryant just left, Tim Duncan just left, Kevin Garnett retired, Dirk Nowitzki and Paul Pierce and Vince Carter, they're all next. And before we know it, we're not going to have any of the players we grew up with. I know I'm not going to. And this opening night is so encouraging because I don't expect any of these guys to go on and average 40 and 50 points, but just from watching them play and watching the highlights and seeing the development, the way they're improving their game, it seems like they're starting to take that next step into actually being the next generation of star players. And that's very encouraging for us because just like all throughout the 2000s, we were watching players like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Kobe Bryant, all of our favorite superstar players play. We all knew they were going to move on and go away one day. We just didn't know who was going to step up in their places, and I'm really hoping from that these players can build on their opening night performances and really start to take that next step into becoming the next crop of superstar players and being able to lead teams to championships and deep into the playoffs. Because what I don't want to see happen to these players is then become like Tyreke Evans, where they have a good year and then they just kind of become complacent after that and they become just middle of the road players, because it's hard to be an NBA superstar and that can legitimately happen to some of these guys. So I'm very glad to see them taking that next step, or at least it looks like it from these performances. So on one hand, it could be that it's just that time for the NBA and it's time for these guys who we've been watching for the last few years to really step into their own and become the next superstars. It could be the NBA just replenishes in itself with that cycle, or it could mean something a little bit more interesting. What if it means that the Golden State Warriors super team was the best thing that happened to the NBA in a great amount of years? Now, obviously Kevin Durant joined the 73-win Warriors this summer, and everybody went looking for the negative. Oh, there's never going to be any more competition. This year is going to suck. Golden State's going to win every game. We sat through it the entire summer. Of course, they lost their first game, and that just totally changed. Now they're overhyped and overrated, and I don't know how people come to these conclusions after one game or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, though, maybe Golden State has really dug into something deeper and sparked more competition than we really had in previous years. Again, after one night, I don't want to make that judgment. I'm just saying what it could mean, because these opening performances really indicate that guys really went and put some work in this summer. And when you think of it from an NBA level competitive standpoint, you might look at Golden State like if you're another NBA player and say, well, there can only be so many Golden States in the league, because obviously they're comprised of top level talent that just doesn't exist in a great number. So that can only happen on a certain scale. And then plus you have players like Damian Lillard who don't really want to do that. But if you're a Damian Lillard type player, then you also think to yourself, well, shit, how am I ever going to win a championship? Playing in the same league as these guys, much less playing in the same conference as them, any road to a championship for the next how many every years they decide to stay together probably is going to lead through them. And so I'm thinking that maybe these players, not everybody can build a Golden State type team. That's not feasible in the NBA. And maybe it's really brought out the best competitor in some of these guys like Kawhi Leonard and Damian Lillard and, all the next stars of the NBA who have really kind of figured out that, well, damn, Golden State just kind of shut it down by putting Kevin Durant on a team that was already pretty unbeatable. If we ever want a chance to compete with them, we're going to have to, pretty much find it within ourselves to be able to do that. And I do think for that reason, this NBA season might be one of the most interesting we've seen in a very long time, because the Warriors obviously aren't the NBA champions, but somehow it still feels like they're the team with the target on their back for what they did this summer. So I'm really excited to see how this all turns out, and I just believe that it's totally possible that that move really brought out the best in some of the greatest competitors in the league. Now, I do just want to go ahead and give my 2 cents on Golden State. First of all, is this video based off of opening night performances, which is one game? Yeah, it pretty much is, but again, I'm talking about what all this might mean, and I've completely admitted that maybe opening night is just an anomaly. early and maybe the rest of this is just going to turn out pretty normal and terrible. I'm willing to admit that I have no clue if I'm right or not. I'm just having some fun talking basketball. However, Golden State lost one game to a really good San Antonio Spurs team, and the world ended on social media not last night, but probably 2 nights ago, and people swore like, yeah, Golden State's not this and they're not that, and oh, they're overhyped. And I'm just like, yo, can everybody just take a chill pill for a second? First of all, the Miami Heat, does that ring a bell in 2010 when they did this same thing and they brought together a super team that everybody thought was going to be unbeatable, and then they lost their first game to Boston, who was a contender just like the Spurs are, and then I believe they started that season 8-9, so they were struggling basically for the first month before ultimately going to the NBA Finals, making 3 more after that and winning 2 more championships. All I'm trying to say is, for those of y'all who actually want to listen to something rational, just chill out for a second. This is Golden State's first game together. This is obviously a much different team than it was last year, and you can tell that by looking at them. Last year, the mantra was strength in numbers because they played with like 8 to 10 guys, and the ball just moved everywhere, and it wasn't dependent on, just a small amount of players. This year, it's obviously different. They dumped the bench. They still have Livingston and Iguodala, but they don't have some of the support pieces like Leandro Barbosa and Ezeli and those other guys they were using last year. It was a lot more people there. The rim protection is obviously not what it was. The defense is obviously not what it was, but you got to give them time to figure out how are we going to win a lot of games with pretty much Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant being the main guys instead of it being 8 to 10 guys. They have to figure that out. And you know what? I think they're going to, because Miami figured it out. People are looking at Golden State and picking them apart, but I'm like, Miami didn't have rim protection either. As far as I can remember, they weren't ranked very well in rebounding. It was those 3 guys. It was LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. It was those 3 guys, and they figured out how to dominate the league. They should have probably won more than 2 championships, but that's a different conversation. It's just gonna take a minute for Golden State to figure this out. All this talk about how, I told you guys, and they're not gonna make the finals and all that stuff. At least let this season get at least halfway done before you start saying crazy stuff like that. Because what happens if, in 30 days, Golden State is winning every game by 20 plus points and they're on a 10-game win streak? Then what does that look like on you as a basketball fan, that you were one of the people who reacted in one night and said that this was a terrible team and you told everybody it wasn't gonna work out? What does that look like on you then? Personally, I don't care. You do what you want. I'm just saying, like, y'all might want to reserve judgment, because it's not like this same exact thing didn't happen with the Miami Heat. Ultimately, I don't even care. I'm a Boston Celtics fan. I give 2 shits what happens to Golden State. I'm just observing, and I'm just telling y'all what I think and what I see. So anyways, those are my full thoughts on what opening night means for the NBA. Just to recap it, I believe that it could mean the NBA is finally replenishing its stars. It could mean that Golden State has sparked a whole lot of competition. And yeah, my spiel about Golden State, just chill out and wait and see what happens, because if y'all would have judged the Miami Heat off their first month, they would have been a terrible team barely making the playoffs every year. So give it time, watch basketball, have fun watching basketball, and talk about it however you enjoy. If you want to shit on Golden State, I don't care, honestly. Like, this is all just fun anyway, I guess. So I'm Dom2K, and I'll see you guys in the next video.